Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Tang Wutong frowned as she lamented, Yuhao, it seems like it's not likely that our plan will turn out to be successful. She was the one who had suggested they come to the Ice Sea. But from the look of things, especially from how things had turned out with the sea devil walruses, the chances of leaving with any takeaway were getting slimmer. Huo Yuhao consoled her, it's okay. We'll just accept whatever comes our way. Since we were already so close to the Ice Sea, it's only right that we come here to take a look. I believe we have to blame the myriad Soul Doluor for the sour relationship between humans and merfolk. Judging from the number of avenging spirits he must have offended plenty of aquatic soul creatures. And we don't even know how many soul beasts he needs to kill before getting a single avenging spirit. I'm not surprised that the merfolk hate us, when he chose not to spare even the descendants of the Princess of the Sea. This tension is probably the reason why Eastern Sun City has started to install soul tools to counter attacks from the aquatic soul beasts. Tang Wutong said, from the current look of things, it's going to be very difficult for us to move around. On top of not being able to leave with anything useful, we might even find ourselves in trouble. Huo Yuhao replied, with the help of the ice and snow empresses, I believe the situation won't be as bad as you think. Let's look deeper, we might just find something useful. We will stop at the distance the snow empress told us earlier. If things truly turn bad, we'll leave right away. All right. Tang Wutong nodded in agreement. With the power of their combined abilities, they really had a good chance of escaping unscathed. Suddenly, Huo Yuhao frowned as he warned Tang Wutong. It's coming again. Be careful. Don't hurt or kill any of the aquatic soul beasts. Tang Wutong naturally understood what he meant. As long as they did not injure any aquatic soul beasts, their mission could still be successful. While they were talking, a streak of grey light suddenly shot out from the ocean. In the blink of an eye, the light was already in front of Huo Yuhao. Because of his spiritual detection, Huo Yuhao had long been aware of the movement of this unknown entity. He pulled Tang Wutong and dodged the light as it streaked past and ascended higher into the sky before plunging back down in a parabolic arc. It found a small crevice on an iceberg and crept back into the ice sea. Even though the entity took only a split second to do all of the above, Huo Yuhao was able to see what it was because of the powerful vision granted by his spirit eyes. It was a very strange-looking fish that was shaped like a long blade. It was black and about 2 meters long. It was like a bolt of lightning, and was able to move at an impossibly fast speed. If not for Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection, it might have been difficult for Huo Yuhao to dodge its attack. From the look of the sharpness of its aura, its attacking prowess should be more or less similar to Ji Juechen's normal sword aura. In addition, the fact that it was able to launch itself from the sea to a height of 500 meters was a sign of the attacking power it possessed. What was that? Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were both shocked by what they had just seen. Once again, they had witnessed how different aquatic soul beasts were from the usual soul beasts. However, this time around, they were not able to identify the species of the soul beast. Before they could even mull over it, another grey streak of light appeared. This time, Tang Wutong had become the target. Huo Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong's hand as they executed the ghost shadow perplexing track by pulling one another. Although they managed to successfully dodge the fish's attack, Huo Yuhao was visibly worried by what had just happened. Holy! There are so many of these weird fish under the water. I think we need to go higher. As he spoke, he increased the power of the Class 9 flying soul tool behind his back, as he brought Tang Wutong to a higher altitude. These weird fish might be fast and strong, but they should have a maximum attacking range. As long as Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong got to a sufficiently high altitude, they should not be a need to fear them anymore. However, just when they were about to ascend, a loud cracking sound caught their attention. A deafening cracking sound echoed outwards across the expansive sea as Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong watched a gigantic iceberg shatter, revealing the dark blue seawater beneath it. The seawater started to become volatile, as a giant whirlpool formed after the iceberg shattered. A powerful suction force was released by the whirlpool as it threatened to suck in everything around it. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong felt as though they were about to sink into a marsh. When Huo Yuhao tried to rev up the power of his soul tool, he realized its force had been countered by the suction force. At this very instant, 10 of the weird blade-shaped fish leapt out from the whirlpool and went straight for Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong. This time around, they had sealed off all possible escape routes. What a good ambush! Both Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong gasped at the same time. Even though the gigantic whirlpool was unable to drag them down, this was already the second type of flight-disabling skill they had seen the aquatic soul beasts use. Even though it was theoretically possible for them to force themselves away from the attraction of the whirlpool, they were not only facing the problem of the whirlpool. At the same time, they had to figure out how to handle the attacks from the fish. This meant that they could not focus their energies on escaping from the pull of the whirlpool. These fish were really intelligent in the timing of their attack. Huo Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong with his right hand as she moved behind him. This would effectively reduce their surface area. Tang Wutong spread out the wings behind her back as she executed her dragon god's fury. With the help of Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection, golden light pellets were directed toward different fish as they sped towards them. But the attacks from the blade-shaped fish were indeed powerful. They were actually able to slice the light pellets in half upon colliding with them. However, Tang Wutong was no pushover either. She detonated some of the light pellets before they reached the fish, and their explosive power blasted the fish away. The blade-shaped fish were not only strong in their attacks and extremely quick, but also fairly resistant to blows. After being blasted away, they were not injured in any way. All they did was fall back into the sea. Nonetheless, Dragon God's fury had successfully blocked the attacks from the fish, and bought precious time for Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong to react. A spark emerged from Huo Yuhao's eyes as the image of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion appeared behind him. A bright jade light projected itself from his chest into the whirlpool beneath him. Whoosh! As the streak of jade light entered the whirlpool, the rapid dark blue whirlpool paused. Following which, the whirlpool gradually disappeared as a thick icy fog rose from the water and froze that area up again. Ice Empress Wrath. Since you wanted to suck me in, I shall freeze you up. The blade-shaped fish did not appear again, and the whirlpool was resealed. The threat seemed to have ended. However, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were still visibly worried. Compared to the attacks from the group of sea devil walruses, the attack this time round was significantly stronger. Other than the blade-shaped fish underneath the water, there must have been a powerful aquatic soul beast which had started the whirlpool. By using his spiritual detection ability, Huo Yuhao was able to see this aquatic soul beast. When his Ice Empress Wrath entered the seawater, the aquatic soul beast suddenly dove deeper into the water. It used the resistance of the water to neutralize the impact of Huo Yuhao's attack, and managed to escape without any injuries. It was a humongous blue whale, and the whirlpool was created by its blowhole. This whale was more than 60 meters long, and possessed powerful soul power. It had cultivated for at least 50,000 years. And those blade-shaped fish were like its minions. They followed the whale after it left. The truth was that the blade-shaped fish had not launched a full-scale attack on Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong previously. The whale had over 100 such blade-shaped fish. While the blade-shaped fish had incredible attacking power, defensive capabilities, and speed, Huo Yuhao discovered that they had a weakness. They were unable to launch another attack, after launching themselves into the air until they had returned to the sea. Every entity would naturally be restricted by the laws of nature. Even the powerful blade-shaped fish were no exception. Huo Yuhao mulled over what they should do next as he floated in mid-air with Tang Wutong. After a short while, he said to her, "We can't go any deeper. The hostility and hatred the aquatic soul beasts have for us humans is a lot deeper than I had thought. I can't risk your safety like this. Let's go back." Huo Yuhao was a very decisive individual. When he sensed that the danger in the sea ahead was unpredictable, he immediately made the decision to leave. He grabbed Tang Wutong's hand as he revved the Class 9 flying soul tool to its maximum possible speed. Together, they flew back on the same path they had taken earlier. Tang Wutong could sense Huo Yuhao's worry as she smiled and asked, "If I wasn't around, would you have continued to venture deeper?" Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, "No, I wouldn't have. Even if you were not around, I still wouldn't have risked my life doing so because you would still be around somewhere, waiting for me. I will always think about you first before doing anything foolish. Of course, if you are referring to the time when you were missing and when I was in my worst moments, I just might have risked it and ventured further." Tang Wutong was very touched by Huo Yuhao's words as she tightened her grip on his hand. "Yuhao, do you know how happy I am to hear what you just said?" Huo Yuhao turned his head and flashed her a smile. "Were you touched by my words?" "A little." Tang Wutong stared at him with a serious look on her face. She continued, "Actually, after truly falling in love with a guy, a girl would not wish for her guy to be overly outstanding or powerful. She just wants him to be safe, and to be with her forever." As they locked eyes, Huo Yuhao nodded with an equally serious look on his face. "I will take care of myself. I won't let you worry unnecessarily." Right now, both of them were flying at a very fast speed, at least twice the speed at which they had been flying when they were venturing out into the sea. At their current speed, they should take at most an hour to return to land. No matter how strong an aquatic soul beast was, it would definitely be a lot weaker on land. That was why they were still unable to threaten Eastern Sun City even till now. Just when Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were starting to relax, Huo Yuhao suddenly frowned. Tang Wutong immediately sensed the change in his mood. "Yuhao, what's wrong? Something isn't right." Huo Yuhao muttered seriously. "What's wrong?" Tang Wutong asked. Huo Yuhao slowed down and said, "We seem to be going deeper into the ice sea instead of returning to land." "Huh?" Tang Wutong asked. "That can't be the case. From the position of the sun, we should be flying in the right direction, right?" The more Huo Yuhao thought about this, the more he felt that something was wrong. He decided to stop and close his eyes as he tried to sense his surroundings. After a short while, he opened his eyes as a worried expression formed on his face. "Damn it. I think we've been tricked." After hearing his words, Tang Wutong tensed up as her golden dragon spear appeared in her hand. Huo Yuhao was very worried about what had just happened. Despite his superior spiritual power, he had actually flown for close to an hour before realizing something was wrong. One could only imagine what would happen next. "What did you discover?" Tang Wutong asked softly. Huo Yuhao forced a smile and said, "I only noticed the problem now because I didn't discover anything strange. The temperature change was the only clue that alerted me. With the speed that we were flying at, if we were heading for land, the temperature should have increased by now. But if you pay attention to our ambient temperature, you can tell that it has decreased. It was especially significant when we just flew over that region." After hearing his words, Tang Wutong immediately understood what he meant. "Are you saying that we've been caught in an illusion?" This was the only possible explanation, especially when the position of the sun told them that they were heading in the right direction. At their cultivation, it was nearly impossible for them to misjudge things like direction. The only possible answer was that they had fallen into a trap. "So what do we do now?" Tang Wutong asked calmly. Huo Yuhao's eyes brightened as he replied, "We must first destroy this illusion. If not, regardless of which direction we fly in, we would only continue in the direction our opponent wants. The power of this illusion is very strong indeed." As he spoke, a line formed of rose gold light extended from the top to the bottom of his forehead. His eye of destiny was slowly opening. The rose golden sunray patterns expanded on his forehead, with the eye of destiny at their center. Huo Yuhao closed his eyes, and used his eye of destiny to observe the world around him. This time, he was finally able to see something. Even though his surroundings seemed to be fairly calm and still, there were actually some gentle energy ripples around him. These energy ripples were of the spiritual type. As he gazed at the sky with his eye of destiny, Huo Yuhao was finally able to see the true position of the sun. This discovery also allowed him to finally understand the mechanism behind this illusion. The illusion was using spiritual power to distort their determination of the sun's position. The most incredible thing about this illusion was how it did not require a lot of spiritual power to maintain it. The changes it invoked were also very gradual and minimal. Hence, it was terribly hard to notice this illusion. Even Huo Yuhao was tricked by it. Huo Yuhao grabbed Tang Wutong's hand as they activated the Class 9 flying soul tools behind their backs. In the next instant, they activated the Haodong power within their bodies as they powered their soul tools to send them speeding in the right direction at the fastest speed possible. However, at that instant, a cold voice rang in their ears. "Since the two of you are already here, why leave so hastily?" Suddenly, dark blue light surged from the ice sea. It was not a wave, but pure energy ripples. The moment the dark blue light surged out, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong felt as if they had collided with an extremely viscous fluid. Their flying speed dropped drastically. Following which, the dark blue light became increasingly dense. Even though their bodies did not seem to be receiving any blows, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong felt as though the world had spun around, and the sky and ocean had swapped positions in the next instant. This was a power which could rival the authority of the heavens. Even with their incredibly high cultivations, they were unable to resist this transformation. All Huo Yuhao could do was keep Tang Wutong in his embrace as he tried to protect her with his body. At the same time, he activated his invincible barrier, as well as his Ice Empress armor. He was exhausting everything he had to protect them. The sensation lasted for a few moments. When the energy ripples finally stopped, Tang Wutong and Huo Yuhao felt a cold sensation on their bodies. To their surprise, they had already appeared in a deep blue world. This deep blue world was no special domain. It was the sea. Yes. In this short amount of time, their surroundings had undergone a mysterious transformation. Both of them had ended up in the sea, even though they were in the air just moments ago. Right now, both of them had an extremely worried expression on their faces. The ocean was the home of the aquatic soul beasts. Their flying advantage was no longer present under these circumstances. When they looked up, all they could see was the same dark blue color. Not a single bit of light could penetrate the thick dark blue water. Even with Huo Yuhao's spirit eyes, he could not see beyond 100 meters. Their bodies were being pounded by the immense water pressure and the icy currents in the sea. In this place, they were unable to breathe and had to suffer the impact of the water pressure. The sea had become their natural enemy as it continuously tried to pressurize and contain them. Tang Wutong was startled by what had happened. When she tried to budge, Huo Yuhao hugged her tighter as he kept her in his embrace. It was fine for cultivators at their level to not breathe for short periods of time. As he hugged Tang Wutong, Huo Yuhao intensified the power of his Eye of Destiny. The rose-gold glow illuminated the surrounding seawater, allowing Huo Yuhao to notice the hundreds of different aquatic soul beasts that were only a couple of 100 meters away from them. Among them were a couple of beautiful mermaids and mermen, which were in front of the other soul beasts. They were wielding long spears and unknown pieces of coral, as they glared at Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong with much hatred. Huo Yuhao released his spiritual power into his surroundings as he attempted to use spiritual detection, amplified by his Eye of Destiny, to scan the furthest he could. He needed to find a way out before he could decide what to do next. If not, they would be trapped here with nothing to look forward to but their own deaths. With their current cultivation, they were able to replace their normal breathing with internal breathing. However, they could only maintain that for about an hour, and at the cost of a copious amount of soul power. This meant that if they were not able to escape from this place in an hour, they would drown here. Humans, stop your meaningless struggle. This is our world, the Great Sea. The power of the ocean will not allow you to achieve anything meaningful with your spiritual power. Regardless of how strong your spiritual power is, it will still be suppressed by the ocean. This is the power of the sea god. A very cold spiritual intent was transmitted into Huo Yuhao's head. Huo Yuhao naturally traced where the intent was coming from as he looked in that direction. He saw a beautiful mermaid. The mermaid was about 3 meters long. Her upper body was modeled after the female human anatomy. 2 white shells were used to cover the private areas in front of her chest. That was all the torso apparel she had. She had a head of long blue hair which did not seem to float about in the water. Instead, it seemed to be frozen in place. She was wielding a long silver spear in her hand. Her lower body consisted of a gigantic fish tail. There were many deep blue scales on the fishtail, which reflected the rose gold light from Huo Yuhao's Eye of Destiny beautifully. There was a silver crown above the mermaid's forehead. In the center of the crown was a blue gem, which symbolized her status. Other than her, there were over 100 merfolk present. Every single one of them was radiating powerful spiritual fluctuations. In addition, Huo Yuhao realized that all of their spiritual fluctuations were linked, like a net. When he attempted to use his spiritual detection to project his spiritual power, the net would repel it, resulting in him being unable to detect what lay in the distance. Martial Soul Combination Skill. They were using an actual martial soul combination skill. A martial soul combination skill was different from a martial soul fusion skill. A martial soul fusion skill was the fusion of either different or similar martial souls to increase their power exponentially and produce an entirely different kind of power. Meanwhile, a martial soul combination skill was mainly just the sum of each other. Martial soul combination skills existed amongst human soul masters. But Huo Yuhao had not heard of hundreds of aquatic soul beasts executing a martial soul combination skill together. No wonder they were able to set a trap without me knowing. No wonder they can use such an incredible power to bring Wutong and I into the ocean. They were using the power of a martial soul combination skill. Huo Yuhao could sense that amongst the mermaids and mermen in front of him, the most powerful aquatic soul beast was the mermaid that had transmitted her spiritual intent to him. However, she was but a soul beast which had cultivated for about 100,000 years, and was still a fair bit away from reaching 200,000 years. Other than her, there were no other soul beasts that had cultivated for more than 100,000 years. Huo Yuhao was certain that no single soul beast in front of them would be able to defeat either him or Tang Wutong if they were to fight one-on-one. However, the situation would be entirely different if the throng of mermaids and mermen were to collectively release a martial soul combination skill. Even though the skill would not be enhanced like a martial soul fusion skill, the power would still grow to insane proportions when all their powers were stacked together. When the spiritual power of over 100 mermaids and mermen was added together, it could definitely be on par with a transcendent Doluo. Huo Yuhao instantly became very worried about the sight before him. My beautiful mermaids and mermen, we come in peace. We have come here to look for the princess of the sea to discuss some things. Huo Yuhao projected his spiritual intent outwards, as Tang Wutong closed her eyes and circulated her soul power. She was trying to activate their Haodong power to slow down their body processes and maintain their internal breathing. This would hopefully extend the duration, which they could stay underwater as long as possible. You filthy humans, don't try to seduce us with your disgusting words. Stop resisting and we will grant you a peaceful death. If not, we will tear both of you to pieces. The mermaid with the crown seemed to bear immense hatred for humans. When she was transmitting her spiritual intent, she had an intensely furious expression on her face. Huo Yuhao replied, "My beautiful mermaids and mermen, if you have been tracking our movements, you will have realized that we have not harmed a single soul beast since we have entered the Ice Sea. We only wish to make a mutually beneficial exchange with you. We really don't harbor any malevolent intentions. Cut the crap. Kill them." The mermaid seemed to have lost her patience, as she pointed the long silver spear in her hands at Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong. Instantly, a humongous net formed by their collective spiritual power was launched in their direction. Huo Yuhao was enraged by their reaction to his words. Since entering the Ice Sea, he had been trying to control his emotions. He took care to make sure he did not hurt any aquatic soul beasts. But after being repeatedly attacked by the aquatic soul beasts, he had had enough. Even the nicest soul in the world had a limit for such things. Do you really think I'm scared of you? Huo Yuhao flashed an angry stare, as he hugged Tang Wutong with his left hand while lifting his right hand. An icy blue light formed in his hand. A black dagger that radiated a cloudy glow appeared. An icy blue gem sparkled from the hilt of the dagger. Yes, it was the sigh of the frozen goddess, Morning Dew Dagger. After appearing, the dagger caused the temperature of the surrounding water to plunge rapidly. This drop in temperature spread outwards at an insane speed. Other than the area where Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were standing, the sea water around them started to freeze rapidly. By using his ultimate ice to activate the Morning Dew Dagger, Huo Yuhao was able to reduce the temperature of his environment to extremely low temperatures. But at the same time, the collective spiritual power of 100 mermaids and mermen was about to hit them. Their spiritual power was effectively at the same level as an ultimate Doluo. However, Huo Yuhao did not fear it. He merely pumped in more ultimate ice power into the Morning Dew Dagger, as he tried to expand the volume of the frozen area under the sea. Boom! When the spiritual power reached a distance that was about 10 meters from him, a mysterious barrier was formed from Huo Yuhao's body. The martial soul combination skill released by the merfolk collided with this barrier, and the skill disintegrated instantly. It was no longer able to cause any harm to Huo Yuhao or Tang Wutong. This is impossible. The mermaid with the crown cried out in disbelief. It was the first time that she had seen a human withstand the net that they had collectively formed with their spiritual power. This was simply unbelievable. Judging from Huo Yuhao's aura, she felt that he was not supposed to be capable of that. And while she was stunned, the space around her started to distort. A mermaid that was floating beside her suddenly disappeared, and was replaced by a proud and tall figure in an insidious fashion. At this instant, the beautiful mermaid with the crown was still shocked beyond belief. The other soul beasts were still focused on the ultimate ice created by Huo Yuhao. No one would have thought that there would be a change in the situation right next to the mermaid with the crown. Xuanwu displacement. Yes, Huo Yuhao had executed Xuanwu displacement, the soul skill which he had replicated from Shusansha, and the technique which had saved his life countless times. Eye of Destiny, spiritual shock. After moving to the mermaid's side, it was Huo Yuhao's turn to strike. He really did not want to harm any of the aquatic soul beasts. However, they were starting to threaten his safety. Most importantly, they were starting to threaten Tang Wutong's safety. He could never and would never allow them to harm her. Thus, he was not planning to go easy on them. Because everyone was focused on the rapidly expanding ice ball, no one would have thought that Huo Yuhao would leave it. They did not expect him to move closer to them. Just when the mermaid started to sense the impending danger, Huo Yuhao's spiritual shock hit her. Because it was launched from the powerful Eye of Destiny at such a short range, one could only imagine its power. The mermaid screamed in pain as her head was forced backwards. However, the crown on her head seemed to release a powerful blue glow which negated a fair bit of the impact from the spiritual shock. Nonetheless, she felt as if her head had exploded as her mind went completely blank. She momentarily lost all ability to resist. Indeed, Huo Yuhao had gone easy on Tang Wutong when they were dueling, just as she had accurately pointed out. With his incredible control over his spiritual power, it was impossible for his soul skills to have any disjointedness. Right now, he was exhibiting his true power. Upon releasing his spiritual shock, the star anise had already crept out of his shoulder. Its blue light expanded to its surroundings. It seemed as though Huo Yuhao's body had been enveloped by a powerful icy blue glow. Star anise icy coagulation. It was incredibly effective to execute star anise icy coagulation in the ice sea. Both Huo Yuhao and the star anise were surprised at the powerful effect of this soul skill. Upon releasing it, Huo Yuhao felt as though his body was about to burst. His incredible soul power seemed to be causing his body and its passageways to expand. Without hesitating, Huo Yuhao continued, executing the star anise omnithrust. With Huo Yuhao's body as its center, countless ice spikes were released in every direction and headed for the soul beasts around him. The aquatic soul beasts that had been carefully selected to ambush Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were all fairly powerful. After their initial confusion, they had already regained their composure. However, it was too late. The ice spikes were already coming for them. The aquatic soul beasts frantically tried to activate their defensive soul skills in an attempt to block them. However, they discovered much to their surprise that the ice spikes did not have any pointy edges. Instead, the tips of the ice spikes were shaped like a ball. Hence, upon colliding with their bodies, the spikes simply knocked the aquatic soul beasts away without piercing into any of them. With the help of these two powerful soul skills, Huo Yuhao was now able to create a one-on-one situation with the mermaid with the crown. Huo Yuhao's eye of destiny radiated a rose gold spark. It seemed like he was really not going to go easy on her. Weakness, confusion. Just when the mermaid was starting to recover from the spiritual shock, she started to feel giddy. Her spiritual sea was in chaos once again. Huo Yuhao extended his left hand as he attempted to grab the mermaid's neck. A layer of blue ice crystals formed automatically as they tried to block Huo Yuhao's hand. It was apparent that this was her innate defensive ability. Unfortunately, she was going up against Huo Yuhao, a soul master with ultimate ice. As Huo Yuhao suddenly clenched his fist, a loud explosion could be heard. The ice crystals instantly exploded as the mermaid within them let out a grunt of pain. Huo Yuhao's left hand continued to stretch forward as he grabbed her neck. He injected his ultimate ice soul power into her body and prevented the soul power in her body from circulating. At the same time, he released 5 golden blades from his right hand which spun around her head. Don't move a muscle. If not, I will kill her immediately. Huo Yuhao's icy spiritual intent was transmitted to every single aquatic soul beast around him. As he passed this message to them, he retreated with the mermaid to the side of the ice ball he had formed from the morning dew dagger. Because ice was less dense than water, the ice ball was bound to float upwards. As Huo Yuhao controlled the mermaid and leaned against the ice ball, he floated up with it. The most important thing for him now was to escape from the sea into the world outside, which contained fresh air. That was the only way he could continue his fight with these aquatic soul beasts. After being overwhelmed by the star anise omnithrust, they saw how Huo Yuhao had controlled the mermaid with the crown after they had regrouped. And just as Huo Yuhao had expected, they did not dare to make a move after seeing how their leader was being held hostage. The mermaid with the crown had awakened by now. She glared angrily at Huo Yuhao and tried to use her spiritual power to attack him. However, she immediately realized her spiritual sea had been locked by Huo Yuhao. There was no way she could retaliate against him. The truth was that the mermaid's ability was actually not much weaker than Huo Yuhao's. The main reason for her lack of success was that Huo Yuhao was able to curb her abilities to a large extent. The collective spiritual illusion the merfolks had created was undeniably powerful. Even Huo Yuhao, a soul master who specialized in spiritual abilities, was tricked by it. However, when it came to individual spiritual power, she was a lot weaker than Huo Yuhao. Her strongest ability was, in fact, nothing when compared to Huo Yuhao's spiritual power. Because of this, her fighting power became a lot weaker. Hence, she had absolutely no chance against Huo Yuhao's surprise attack. However, the mermaid still could not wrap her head around how Huo Yuhao was able to fend off their collective spiritual attack. Even the leader of the entire mermaid race would not have been able to take the blow head-on. How was this human able to do it? Of course, Huo Yuhao would never reveal how he did it. He was only able to pull it off because of the three-eyed golden lion's skull of destiny. It pretty much granted him immunity against 3 spiritual attacks every day. And this immunity was absolute and unconditional. Previously, he had relied on this ability to survive against the humongous spiritual blows from the evil eye tyrant. It was the last thing that Wang Qiu'er had given him. Once again, it protected him at this critical moment. As the ice ball continued its ascent, the other soul beasts kept a good distance from it. Huo Yuhao quietly let out a sigh of relief. They would be out of the ocean soon. Once they left the ocean, their chances of staying alive would be a lot greater. By holding the mermaid hostage, Huo Yuhao had a good chance of escaping the ice sea unscathed. Previously, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong did not know how deep within the sea they were. As the ball continued in its ascent, they realized that their surroundings had only become slightly brighter. They were probably at least a couple thousand meters under the water. No wonder the pressure was so high. However, at the rate at which they were ascending, they should be able to leave the water before they ran out of breath. This video will end here.